I don't like some of them because of their dirty politics. That I'm shocked that a lot of people don't know that. Cardenales engage with law enforcement and they speak to them openly. This happens more often than not. And you might not call that informing, but if a Sureño did that, what would happen? What would happen? Boom, boom, boom. Hey, folks, my name is Rene Enriquez, and you are watching Uncensored. I am a former member of the Mexican Mafia. I want to take you through this laundry list of members. So, the first individual in the upper left is Frank Big Sluggo Castaneda. In fact, he overdosed after paroling from the feds. Mundo included that story in the Mexican Mafia Encyclopedia. Next person on the list is Gabriel Little Sluggo. These two individuals were brothers, Gabriel and Frank. I did not know these guys. I did not know them at all. I believe they're both deceased. I know Frank Big Sluggo overdosed, and I believe Gabriel Little Sluggo is deceased as well. A lot of people put out these lists of members, and they're always wrong. I've seen a number of channels do them, and they claim that it's a validation from the CDC, so they're going to include it, even though they have some suspicion it's wrong. I guess for the views, I don't know. I'm just not going to do that here. This is based off the Mexican Mafia Encyclopedia, where Mundo and I compiled all the Mexican Mafia members that we personally knew or knew about that were made, that were righteous carnales. Not validated by the CDC or law enforcement, but validated by the M. When the M validates you, you're validated. I think that's the gold standard, right? Because I hear a lot of dudes, I don't know how many content creators have said they were validated, they're on a 180, level 4, and that don't mean squat. It don't mean squat, because every swinging in the CDCR that even remotely knows somebody is validated, right? So it means nothing. And a lot of dudes do it for braggadocio. They get out, yeah, I was validated. Here's my chrono. It means nothing. It really does. Let me remind you all, you can support the channel by watching the video in its entirety. That's all important, folks. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. We are desperately trying to reach 100,000 subscribers by December. Make it happen, folks. Only you can make it happen. I can make the videos. You got to make the subscription count grow. Leave a comment, hit the thumbs up notification. As always, watch this video in its entirety. The next individual in the middle is Arturo Tablas Castellano. That's Tablas from Florencia, one of the three kings. He's been all over the news. He's been involved in indictments as an unindicted co-conspirator. I believe that he was desperately trying to get indicted. I mean, he loved the attention. He was part of the peace talks, became a representative in the peace talks. And a funny story is that Tablas used to be a Christian. I remember him from San Quentin. They used to call him Brother Art. And when we're Sureños, we're running around the yard, Sureños, young Southsiders actually. We hadn't done anything yet. We were just kids. And I remember Art running around with a Bible. It was leather bound and it had a dove on it. And he would walk by us, God bless you, brothers, God bless you, and invite people to church. And he was a really humble guy at that time. He was a really humble guy. And then I end up with him in Tracy right after his brother Bobble, who's the next guy on the list, got made. And Tablas turns into a level 10 gangster. He comes out with a big blue headband that covers his entire forehead. He's strolling with big creased up pants, and he jumped right in it. Because he was part of the crew. He was part of our crew. He was part of the wrecking crew. But it always amazed me that he went from a quiet church house mouse to level 10 gangster like that, just because his brother got made. And it kind of showed me, like, I guess the Christianity thing was all fake. But he came out of his shell, and he sure came out of his shell when he came out of it, right? Because now he's one of the top cardenales. He got put on the shelf for a little while. He got put on disregard. He was doing way too much. I think the cardenales pulled his reins, and I heard he was on disregard for a minute. I don't know what his status is now. I think he might be in good graces again. He's making his way back, but that status remains to be seen because he was involved in a lot of controversy. In fact, Tablas was involved in the deep facility war. He was one of the main individuals pushing that whack out deep facility cardenales, including me. And I got no personal beef with the guy, you know. I don't. You know, it was just politics. It was what he had to do to get me out of the way, and I get it. You know, I have no hard feelings at all. At all. I'd welcome the guy to sit down to carne asada and have some ice cold Voodoo Rangers if he ever got out. Of course, I'd have a gun pointed at him the whole time. If he was acting. But yeah, you know, I got no animosity towards the politics that happened in the mob or are my former adversaries in the organization. And I don't have that towards Tablas now. I truly don't. And I mean that with a clean heart. Right? I could say that with a clean heart. I have no animosity towards any of these guys. I don't like some of them because of their dirty politics, and Tablas was a dirty politicker. Dirty politicker. A lot of people don't know that. That Tablas has been involved in so many freaking campaigns that brought about the demise of cardenales that I'm shocked that a lot of people don't know that. But He's sitting up where he's sitting up. I think it's Solano, and most of that is flipping over to non-designated. I could be mistaken on the location. I have locations on all Cardenales, but I just do not have time to go pull it out and research it. I'm going to be doing that in the near future. Locations at specific prisons, which Cardenales are there, and how it runs. We're going to do that pretty soon, and I'll include it there. The next person on the list is Braulio Babo Castellanos, also from Florencia, Babo from Florencia. And what a lot of people don't know, and a lot of people still don't believe, is that Babo was an informant for the SSU for at least 15 years before he died. I know that he started informing. I don't know if he continued throughout the rest of his years. I know he did interviews, and I showed you part of those interviews, and people brushed that off like, oh, he wasn't telling, but he used to meet with the SSU and answer questions for them. In fact, Robert Marquez from the Special Services Unit used to go up on top of the roof, send his IGIs out there, and they would drop a little line from the roof on the yard because it's completely isolated. And they would drop him a piece of paper and a pencil. He would allow them 13 questions, and he would answer the 13 questions. Like, who's on the list? Are cops endangered? How the drugs come? Whatever it was. I don't know what the questions were. I'm just making this up here as I go along. But this really, really happened. And a lot of people won't believe it. There's no paperwork. There's no this. Believe me, it happened. This happens more often than not. The carnales engage with law enforcement and they speak to them openly. And you might not call that informing. But if a Sureño did that, what would happen? What would happen? What do you think the results would be if a Sureño was answering questions for SSU secretly while on the yard, or meeting with them and having conversations with them, even being caught on video with them? What do you think would happen? Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. Just like that. No questions asked. But Babo's deceased. May he rest in peace. You know what? I'm kind of happy that he got out and was able to die a free man. That's something. That's something. And I think for his family, for Tablas, for everybody, all the people that survived him, it's a bit of solace. How do you assuage that kind of pain, losing a loved one? But the fact that he died a free man is something. And I think I'd want that for every cardenal, everybody who's in this life. If you could die a free man, then that's a blessing. Truly is a blessing. Breathing free air, just having a good meal, that's a blessing. So the next guy on the list is, but before I do, let me remind you all that we are selling signed copies of The Black Hand, the biography about my life, on our site, www.buymeacoffee.com/uncensored team. If you'll scan the QR code here, it'll take you directly to the site. You guys can support the channel by making donations or buying a signed copy of the book. Daryl Dashing D Castrejon. We just did a whole story on Dashing D. So you know the get down. Dashing D was from Black Angels. In fact, a really well-placed carnal. He whacked out a guy named Montgomery in San Quentin in 1984, came out of his cuffs during peace talk. That was the thing. They wooed him out. They wooed out the Crips. And this is a time when it was rocking and rolling in San Quentin and a bunch of other places. In fact, BGF were hiding under the bunks in AC and coming out and stabbing camaradas, right? They were getting it. This was a real war. And Dashing D was going to lash out and retaliate. So they wooed out this Crip by the name of Montgomery under the guise of peace talks. And Dashing D had a guy waiting on the tier, and I think they probably had this on all tiers, knives and handcuff keys ready, because Dashing D was going to stab him, and he did. He eliminated him on the tier under gunfire. In fact, Dashing D got shot in the face, the body. He was shot multiple times with the riot pump from point blank range, right off the gun rail, and one of the pellets hit his eye. That's why he wears that patch. That's why he's got the ojo tuerto. And a whole lot of controversy spun out of that too. But that's how Daryl really made his bones in the organization. That was like his first notch for the MA. Daryl ended up beating his original case. He pled guilty to the case on Montgomery. I think it was a manslaughter. And because he beat his original case on appeal, they had to release him. No parole, nothing. He goes out there to the streets and F's it off. He jumps right back into it. He hooks up with Charlene Chavez, which is the wife of a deceased Mexican Mafia member, Chano Chavez, and starts participating in a bunch of stuff. One of the comments said that it was Mike Lerma. Oh, in fact, it was Mark Beathit. And Mark is a former Mexican Mafia member who made a comment on our channel that it was Dogmouth Mike that was pushing the hard issue because Frankie B was in his area taxing people. And peace to Mark. Hope you're doing well, brother. God bless. But it was found out through one of the commenters, who is an ex-carnal, that it was Dogmouth Mike Lerma, who pushed the issue on him. And it got done. Unfortunately for Dashing D, he was caught on wire and they indicted him during that process, he bailed out cash bail and put up a couple houses as well and got ghost. Went to Mexico. Rumored that he got skinned and shot and hung off a bridge. Rumored that he got skinned and shot and hung off a bridge. Skins hanging in the air, much like the allegation that Daryl's body was left hanging. And I posted a comment there. What do you think? So, what do you think? Let me know what you think. The next guy on the list is Ramon Tuffy Castrillo. I did not know that. I heard the name quite a few times. Tuffy. I don't know what his status was. I know he's probably not among the living. These are very early members, and I never met him. He was way before my time. The next guy is Ernest Chuco Castro. Chuco from VNE. This was my ace coon boom right here. Chuco could do no wrong in my eyes, and I could do no wrong in Chuco's eyes. And he supported me completely. It was heart of steel. I remember on this one occasion, we had a guy from Long whacked on the yard in Palm Hall. I went up behind him, opened up his neck with a box cutter. And it was over some BS, right? I don't remember what it was about, but somebody campaigned on him. We listened to it, and we had him whacked. And the camarada goes up behind him, slices him open. And, I mean, horrible wound. Gaping neck wound. Just, 6 inches long across his throat. And the guy's spewing blood. Just spewing. And it's me, Chuco, Carlitos from Lomas, and I think Bessie was there. Bessie Sagato from 18th Street. We're all standing right there. And after the guy slices him, what does he do? He drops the box cutter right next to the guy. Just drops it and walks away. What does the victim do? He picks it up and starts walking towards us. And Chuco goes straight towards him. I was nervous. I'm not going to lie. This guy's got a box cutter. We just had him whacked, and he knows we did. And he's armed, we're not. There's 4 of us, and we would thump him, if he came at us, and we would, definitely disarm him. They were probably fired by then because they had live coverage on the yard in Palm Hall. They would carry these tactical 9mm to fire glacier rounds. They had just switched over from the Ruger Mini 14 223 because the bullets were going through people and hitting other innocent victims, right? So they got these high-impact glacier rounds that would not penetrate a body but do massive damage, right? I think that it would have been stopped before it even got to the point where we could disarm him. He could have probably slashed 1 or 2 of us, but we would have vamped on him. So Chuco approaches this guy, steps out of our crowd, takes about 5 steps to tell him, drop the freaking box cutter. And the guy's saying, why did this happen? What's going on? And you could tell he's dazed. He's losing massive amounts. He's hemorrhaging, right? And Chuco just balls of steel, right? So once Chuco stepped up, I stepped up, and all the rest of the carnal stepped up. We told him, put it down. Put it down. And he did. He dropped it right there. No, he went to the bathroom. We told him to go flush it. And he went and flushed it. And then he walked to the gate, and they hit, get down! Get down! Once you hear that, get down. Because if you're still standing, when it's going on, you're going to get shot. So this dude from Longo went and flushed this razor and then went to the gate for medical attention. He survived and came back to the tier. Much to his credit, he did not lock up. He came back to the tier and says, hey, I don't know what I'd done. I don't know why I got hit, but I'm coming back, and we gave him a pass. And I actually felt sorry for him when I saw him get hit. I thought at that moment, like, man, we shouldn't have done this. He didn't have that coming. There were moments like that in my career when I remember that dudes would get whacked or something. You'd think, like, man, did he really deserve that? And he didn't. It was over some BS. I think marijuana or coffee or something minor, something somebody said when he was on one of those minimum yards. Because a lot of those guys from CIM minimum and CRC would come to us after they got slammed in those locations, and they put them in the only place they could, which is Palm Hall. That was the ad seg back in the day. In fact, it used to be home front for NF, Mexican Mafia, and AB. They had that as a shoe. So everybody who was doing a shoe program did time there. But Chuco was a great dude, man. He was a great dude. He was a good friend. He ended up flipping in 1995. Actually, way before then. He flipped on the first federal investigation of the Mexican Mafia, United States of America versus Alex Aguirre et al. Chuco became an FBI informant and actually did the most damage to the organization. If you really think about it, in terms of consequences to the organization, that was the blow. That was a stake to the heart. Because Mundo had flipped, and I had flipped subsequently, but Chuco was the one that set in motion the first RICO. And RICO has been used vehemently against the organization since then. There have been so many indictments, and it's Chuco that did that, right? There have been so many indictments, and it's Chuco that did that, right? I'm going to do a full episode on Chuco himself and the impact he had on my life, and he's really the result of my freedom. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to leave that cliffhanger right there because I'm not going to say anymore. I'll give it away. But yeah, Chuco was my buddy, man. He's since disappeared, living his best life with his wife out somewhere in Witsec, and I wish him the best. If you're listening, Chuco, peace to you, brother. God bless. The next guy on the list is Ruben Night Owl Castro. That's Night Owl from 18th Street. The stepchild of all 18th Street. He's always been treated bad by them. But I think that's based upon his inability to organize and hustle, right? Night Owl has never had that capability. He's always had the homeboys who kicked him down, gave him spoons and dope here and there. But he's never had a real crew and a real hustle, right? Not to my knowledge, not when I was a cardan. In fact, when we put in that thing to stop the drive-bys, it was 18th Street that violated the rule first, and Night Owl was on the streets. So Chuco and the brothers on the streets told me, hey, if they come in for a drive-by after this date, they got to get whacked. So I went about effectuating that. That was my job in terms of the drive-by thing, right? That was my job, to ensure that these guys got whacked, that violated the rule. And sure enough, first guys to come in, 18th Street. And they were prolific at shooting at people and hitting innocent people. And one case is documented in the book Rent Collector by Jesse Katz. It's a great story. If you haven't seen that book, go get it. Check it out. It's a great story. In fact, I interviewed Jesse Katz once. I think I'm going to run that here soon. Jesse Katz is a great friend, wrote a great story about the 18th Street drive-by stuff and collateral damage that occurred because of some of those crimes that took place in that area in 18th Street. So Night Owl contacts me and says, hey, man, can you give my homeboys a pass? And I says, no, I can't, bro. I'm sorry. I can't. And he offered me $10K. He said, my homeboys pay you $10K right now. Take the green light off. And like a dummy, I didn't take it. I was like stuck on this moral principle, like a dummy, because everybody else was taking money and taking people off the green light list. I did. I was one of the guys that sat back with Chuco and Shai and all the cardenales that put this in effect. In fact, we're the ones that kicked the idea out to him to stop the drive-bys. And I was a firm believer, right? And I did not accept the money. In fact, Ruben Castro, Night Owl, is the one that sent me the 22 and the rounds and all that stuff. He's the one that got the rounds for me. He would send me clavo and I would communicate with him. I was good with this brother, right? But he's always been the stepchild of 18th Street. Never been a big figure, not like Bessie or Caballo. Caballo's coming up now in 18th Street. He's the, I guess, the presumed king, because puppets in ADX under ADMAX, SAMS, Special Administrative Measure, when the United States government slams you down, right, and considers you a terrorist threat to the community or the safety and security of jail staff, inmates, and the community. That's when they do that. And it has to be done on a special motion requested by the government, approved through a federal judge. Some really wazoo stuff, man. And he's lost all his ability to communicate. So he's out of the picture, right? His power's waning. And there's a natural vacuum there. And you think that Night Owl would be part of filling that vacuum. But no, it's Caballo that's emerging as an 18th Street boss, right? In fact, his wife was just indicted when they hit MacArthur Park. Feds went in there and cleaned up the whole place and, in fact, arrested his wife. So Night Owl Castro is in federal prison serving a life sentence. His status is questionable. And that's all I'll say on that. We might do a story on that in the future. And that's Night Owl Castro. The next guy is Pretty Pete Chacon. I vaguely remember that he was eliminated for having an affair with the wife of a carnal, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. Again, I haven't read the manuscript for Mexican Mafia Encyclopedia for a long time, probably 15 years ago. I'm taking little excerpts out of there and doing episodes on it, and we'll probably go back and cover something like this. But that's Ramon that mentioned that he was eliminated. And I did not know him. He was before my time. The next person on the list is Tomas Tommy Chagola. I did not know this individual at all. Then there is Danny Japo Chapa on the third row, starting from the left. I did not know him. And the next person is Arthur Art Chavez. I did not know him. Then there is Bruno Chavez. I did not know him. Then there's Frank Pancho Chavez. I did not know him. And I do not believe that these people are related, because they were not in our nepotism chapter within the book Mexican Mafia Encyclopedia. Then there's Danny Dangerous Dan Davila. In fact, I don't know why he ran into a jam, but in Folsom, Alfie ended up stabbing him. They politicked on him. He was put on the lista. Alfie went to the yard and stabbed him in the elbow. He stabbed him in the elbow. That's all he did. So Dangerous Dan ended up locking up after that. Years later, he ends up in the county jail. County jail, there's like three cardenales. There's Pelon Jesse Moreno, Pelon from Norwalk, Negro from Artesia, and Mike Boo. I think Mike Boo Moreno was there as well. I could be mistaken, but I know Pelon and Negro were there for sure. And they send little men from Whittier to go whack him. They give the hit to Little Man. Little Man is that he's gung ho. Yeah, I'll go do it. The little man is that he's gung ho. Yeah, I'll go do it. Little man from Whittier gets an ODR butter knife, right? Sharpened on both ends, double edged, razor sharp, and gives it to little man from Echo Park. Little man does the hit, boom, 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 and eliminates Dangerous Dan in the county jail. The fatal blow was the one to his throat. That's what did him in, right? Both little mans get swooped up, taken to high power, and little man from Whittier claims the fame. That's Donnie Ortiz. And Donnie Ortiz was recently eliminated 5 or 6 years ago. We'll do a story on that at some point in the future. I think I did already. I did one. And so Little Man goes to the high power, 1750, 1700, and claims that he's the one that did the work on Dangerous Dan. Comes out later, Little Man did not do the work. It was Little Man from Echo Park. Little Man from Echo Park ended up taking a manslaughter deal and locked up. He went into PC. Like, I ain't dealing with this. This is too much stuff. And he did the right thing. He's out now living his best life. God bless him. But little man from Whittier, Donnie Ortiz, got it stuck and embroiled in politics. Cuate Grajeda began politicking on him. And at that time, we did not know that he didn't do the hit. But Cuate Grajeda began politicking on him. Cuate would befriend these guys and then politic on them. And it was always Cuate involved in these dirty politics in the county jail. A lot of the stuff that happened there revolved around Cuate. I mean, in fact, everything. Everything in there revolved around Cuate. In fact, I remember getting calls from him, and he always wanted me to whack people. And every Cardenal said the same thing. Dave, don't take calls from that guy, because he's going to tell you to whack somebody. And if you don't do it, he'll start politicking on you. Like, he was the guy that wanted to appoint everybody to whack people. That's how he thought he was, right, Cuate? That's how he thought he had it. And he believed that, right? But he washed up a lot of Cardenales, including Little Man. Little Man was there in high power, and Cuate was actively politicking on him. And Little Man comes to me, ends up on my tier. It's say, man, he's politicking on me. I says, here. All the Cardenas agreed. You got all right to whack him. And I gave him a bone crusher, like a bone crusher. Big old knife. Solid steel. Cut out of the bunk. Not going to bend. And it will do damage. And I gave him a handcuff key. I tell him, handle it, bro. Set up a visit. Go out there and handle it, dude. This dude is politicking and he's going to get you eliminated if you don't take action. And what does Little Man do? Nothing. Nothing. In fact, he had never done anything for the organization that I knew. Never. He made it into the organization based on that bogus claiming to do the hit on Dangerous Dan. And when it came time to do work, he wouldn't do it. He just wouldn't do it. He was short timing, wino timing, and I think he was always worried about that parole date. So he doesn't do the hit. He gets caught with the knife. I go to court, and he's supposed to do it. He doesn't do it. And I come back, I say, well, where's the knife and the key? Because I'm going to take it away. If he's not going to use it, I'm taking it away. And he had it for like a week, right? He had plenty of time, ample time to do the hit. He could have did it during showers. He could have moved on the tier. He could have did anything. He could have did anything to get it done. It's so easy to do hits in LA County Jail. At that time it was. But he didn't do anything. So I come back from court one day after giving him a knife and a key and tell him, hey, take off. All the Cardenas agree. Go ahead. I mean, that's between you and Cuate. Go ahead and handle it, right? He's talking real bad about you. He's campaigning on you. You're a good Cardenan. And he didn't do it. I come back from court and he says he lost the knife. He lost the knife. And I was like, look at him like, right then I knew this guy is This guy is He ain't no gunslinger. He ain't no G. He ain't none of that. And I just kind of pulled away from him at that point. In fact, I sent him to do something at one point on the streets, and he didn't do it then either. That was my second occasion with him. I sent him out there. I'll put that in another episode. But I sent him out specifically. He was on the streets. I gave him a gun, gave him a car, gave him everything, and he didn't do it. That's what was asserting. That Little Man did not perform when Cuate sent him to do a hit, that he actually lost the gun. On my occasion, I sent him to the place. The guy was there. He had a gun. He had a getaway vehicle, and he didn't do it. So he had a repeated pattern of dereliction of duty, right? And in this instance, he claimed to eliminate Danny Davila and did not, and it cost him, right? Everything was going to catch up with him at some point. But this is the one thing that broke the camel's back. And everybody turned their back on him at that time. Once he did that to me on the streets, and once he did it in the county jail, I turned my back, and a lot of other brothers turned their backs on him and said, you know what? Whatever happens to you happens. And that's it, you know? That's what I'm saying about controversy in the organization. You could survive controversy once, twice, but over and over and over and over again, you cannot survive that. You cannot. True or not, it sticks on you. And Cardenales start turning away, just like I turned away from Little Man, because I liked him. I really liked him. He was a funny little guy. The next guy is Crazy Leo DeCloud. I did not know him. In fact, I believe he was Native American. If I'm not mistaken, Ramon said he was Native American before my time. And the next guy is David Chino Delgadillo. He actually made parole. I showed you his debrief video sitting alongside Stump, where he's just sitting there saying nothing. That's kind of like how Chino was. That's Chino from Garrity. I heard he made parole, but that he just got violated for a domestic threat or something like that. And that's unfortunate, right? That's unfortunate. I know there's a story that he put out that the MA eliminated his wife. I know there's a story that he put out that the MA eliminated his wife, but that's not the case. He may believe that, and my condolences to him and all the surviving family members and friends of his deceased wife, but that's not the case. She committed suicide. But I'm the one that made a videotape to flip this guy. He was in the hat. I told you the story about how we're on the bus. We went down to West Valley Detention Center during the first RICO in 1995, and we discovered transcripts where he's talking really bad about Richard Aguirre, Psycho from the Avenues. It was then decided that Richard Aguirre had the green light to whack him, and everybody was jumping at the bit to do it. Chino was not a well-liked cardenal. Just like me, I wasn't well-liked, right? That's kind of the norm. Not everybody likes you. You have a couple of camaradas in the organization, and the rest are your enemies. And it's kind of counterintuitive. Why do you want to get involved in an organization where people don't like you, right? And then they're going to plot to kill you. That's what one person posed to me one time. He says, how can you be so fucking stupid to eliminate people who want to eliminate you? Are you a fucking dummy? That's what she told me. And it just rang true. Like, whoa, that's the truth. So Chino gets into this mix in West Valley Detention Center. We read the transcripts. He's calling Richard Aguirre a rat straight out. He's caught on wire, and we have the transcripts to the wire, and it's like, okay, it's on. I have a knife and a key, and I offer it to Psycho Aguirre, and Danny Boy and Caballo want to do the hit. Everybody wants to get involved somehow, and Richard Aguirre says, no, I'm going to give him a pass. I'm going to give him a pass. And it's then that I looked at Psycho like, are you effing kidding me? Here's your chance to not only make your bones for the organization, because Psycho's never really did anything as a cardenal, but to clean up your reputation, right? This is a guy calling you a rat, and he didn't do anything. And I lost some respect for the guy at that time. Like, nah, dude, you can't give that guy a pass for that, you can't. He didn't even apologize at the time. There was no apology on the table, and he just said, I'm going to give him a pass. I think later on during that trip, he sat down next to Chino, and they talked. And Chino, denied it, and whatever he did, Psycho ended up giving him a pass. But that was David Delgadillo. I'm glad he got out. I hope he's at peace. He may be finished with his violation by now, and hopefully he understands that, you know what? Live at peace, bro. Live at peace. You got out. You achieved the miracle. Now live the dream. That's all. That's all. The next guy on the list is Mike Delia. This is the guy who had his wife eliminated, had Alfie take her out to Sacramento, and whacked her out, Ellen Delia. Mike Delia was Italian, wasn't a gang member at all. He was Italian, right? In fact, I did an episode where I showed him meeting with at Perico's warehouse in office. And the guy is a bit of a J-cat. You hear the stuff he's talking. He talks 1,000 miles an hour and doesn't let anybody speak. He kind of controls the conversation. And Mike Delia was actually on the lista in his last years. People were hunting him down, looking to get him. And he ended up dying of cancer. He died of natural causes, which is a rare thing in the organization. People rarely die of natural causes. That's not how people go out. But Mike Delia had disappeared for maybe 10, 15 years, didn't communicate with anybody. And as soon as the taxation program came, he ended up popping out of the woodwork, started taxing people, and wanted to control it. That was what the video was about when I showed you with him and Perico in Perico's warehouse. Him trying to come out and take control of the taxation program. But a lot of people were just too little too late. This guy's no good and got to go. Fortunately, he avoided meeting up with the people who wanted to do him wrong, and he died of natural causes. The next guy on the list is Carlos Robot Diaz. That's Carlos from San Diego. He's an old man now. He is an old man now. I remember him from San Quentin in 1982. I met him. Guy was huge. They used to drive iron back then. They had weight piles. And he was huge. And he was a hog. In fact, it was Carlos, Haas, and somebody else who ended up hitting, also from Florencia, in AC. And also from Florencia was a guy who was deaf, couldn't hear. But Carlos has put in work for the organization. He's one of the guys that I knew when I first met when I went to San Quentin. I was a tier tender there. Carlos is just living his life as an old man, enjoying his illegal substances, and doesn't really bother anybody, right? Doesn't got a crew, doesn't got a hustle going on. Not that I know of, right? Not one of the prolific cardenales. Recently, while at Lancaster State Prison in Lancaster, California, Carlos encountered a Sureño who was tweaking, ran in the cell and started stabbing Carlos. Fortunately for Carlos, his little security team was in there, ran in the cell and saved him. But he got stabbed up pretty good, right? I don't know where he's at now or what. I know it wasn't EMED directed. I had first received information that it was. I corrected that, but Carlos is still in good standing. Richard Kiko Diaz, never knew the guy. A lot of these guys I never knew. That's just before my time, right? And I'm not going to profess to know them or know anything about them because I don't. Like there's not any one cardenal that could say he's met and knows all the cardenales. And there's only about 125, maybe 150 max, right? With that said, folks, hype the video if you have a hype slip. Leave a comment and a thumbs up. That's your video for a Friday. Hope you enjoy the weekend. Stay safe. Peace out.